Well, good Tuesday evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Bowling with the Pfeff, a platform for you to share your unique bowling story live on our YouTube channel. If you are living in the Midwest like I am, hopefully you're somewhat warm. We're kind of doing that competition around here where everybody posts their little shots of their car thermometer up on social media. I feel like I would have had, close to a win in that. I think we were at about minus 17 air temperature this morning. But I have a feeling my guest today may have been even colder than that. We're going to find out that there's a lot more to Albertville, Minnesota than an outlet mall coming up tonight. Let's get to a couple of news items first, though. The U.S. Open has started in earnest in Indianapolis, Indiana. Thomas Larsen of Denmark is the leader after the A and B squads have finished 8 games of their qualifying on day one. He had 1749 this morning, which is plus 149 for 8 games. After that, Jesper Svensson of Sweden at plus 129. EJ Tackett of Bluffton, Indiana at plus 85. Mookie Betts and Jason Belmonte both bowled the A squad and are tied in 38th place at minus 62. The C squad is in the middle of competition as we speak. I believe there are a couple of games in. They are, 2 games in. So we'll see how they end up doing. After that, it's the rest of qualifying and match play. It's on Bowl TV all week. Then match play is broadcast on FS1 Saturday, 3 p.m. Wisconsin time, and the finals are on Sunday on Big Fox at 1 p.m. Wisconsin time. Certainly excited to see who is the last one standing in that. The USBC is moving its women's national championships in 2024. It was previously set for Western Bowl in Cincinnati, but that center is planning renovations. So to accommodate that and other business, it will be in Reno instead. It will Western Bowl in Cincinnati will host women's nationals in 2027 instead of 2024. Registration for the 2024 event in Reno will begin this April. Well, congratulations to Newman University on winning the 2023 Peacock Classic, which was streamed live here on the channel about a week and a half ago. They made it to the championship match on January 22nd by defeating Upper Iowa, and then won the championship 4-1 over Lewis of Illinois. Here's how the results shook out on that. Newman, the champion, the second champion in that event. You've got Lewis as the runner-up, Upper Iowa in third, Valparaiso of Indiana in fourth, and Quincy of Illinois in fifth. As far as individuals are concerned, Kensley Morris, the all-tournament MVP, beating out her teammate Morgan Cooper by just 5 pins. So a couple of Newman Jays up top in the individual part of that event. I spoke with the Jays after their win. Here's what they had to say.
I mean, it definitely feels nice to, I feel like we're slowly, especially just now transitioning this year to NCAA, I feel like we're really improving at getting our name out there, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
It feels nice to slowly be seen as kind of even with WSU, so I'd say we've been doing a great job at that, I feel like.
Yeah. We did a lot of the same that we did yesterday, Quan, honestly. I mean, there was just the shot making was pretty good. And the thing that I'm most proud about with the ladies is, like, we talk about all the time about how not letting one bad shot lead to a whole bunch. And we have struggled with that in the past. And the last 2 days, we were just really good about that. they'd make a bad shot and they'd rally instantly, and it shows in the scores. So it's a good day for Newman bowling.
So, Newman, your new 2023 Peacock Classic champion in the second year of the event. Valparaiso won this thing in 2022. So, those two schools stand alone as the lone Peacock Classic champions. A big thank you to Upper Iowa University coach Nicole DePaul and the school for bringing me out and letting me stream that again. It was a great time. And also thanks to Mark London, who you've seen on this show. He came out, provided some color commentary, did a fantastic job with it, and was really happy to have him out there. So thanks to all involved, and congratulations on a great event once again, which is, of course, no surprise. They had a great event in the inaugural year. So hopefully growing bigger and better as the years go by. Bowling with the Pfeff is brought to you by Chip Magnet Salsa. Chip Magnet is a family business right nearby here in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, distributing quality salsa, relish, and a whole lot more to stores in 38 states and Canada. Minnesota is one of those states. If you're in the Twin Cities, you can get your Chip Magnet fix at Whole Foods, Nolan's Festivals, Kowalski's, Lunds and Byerly's, and most all small co-op stores. Go to chipmagnetsalsa.com if it's not in a store near you. Chip Magnet, raise your snack standards, and a huge thank you to Chip Magnet for their support, their ongoing support of Bowling with the Pfeff. Well, our guest tonight reached out to me recently asking if she could share her bowling story on the show, which I love. I've never answered that question with a no before. So if you're interested, you can follow suit. Bowlingwiththepfeff@yahoo.com is the email address. By the way, she's won women's association and state titles, worked in the bowling business, and has basically lived life in the sport for more than 2 decades. So let's bring her on out. Megan Antonelli is on our show tonight and ready to go with her bowling story. Megan, welcome to Bowling with the Pfeff.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and to just explain my story.
Yeah, no, I was really glad that you reached out, and having spent really my high school years in Minnesota, it's always cool to to get folks from the Twin Cities and the surrounding areas on, because it kind of brings me back a little bit.
Right.
But as you know, the name of this show is A Day on the Water, and I wanted to kind of start there. A lot of us in the upper Midwest, spending time on the water like you are there with Addy Jo, in the off season, it doesn't really interfere with bowling that much. And I'm assuming that's kind of the case with you guys.
Yeah, for sure. So that's actually up in Buffalo, New York. So I have family that lives on the Niagara River. And so we go out there and visit them every year. So we always try to go out on the river and go fishing, go jet skiing. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, looks like you guys are having a great time. And since we're on the topic of Addy Jo, I've got to ask, is she a bowler too?
So, funny story.
Yeah.
I was getting her into bowling when I was at a bowling center. So, when I was working at a bowling center, unfortunately, she is not bowling yet,
Okay.
but she is a lefty.
Oh,
I know. So,
great.
when she came to work with me a few times, she would pick up a ball and she would pick it up with her left hand. And I'm like, um, Addie, I got to get you into bowling. And I still haven't. So, that means nothing right now.
Okay. But she's pretty young yet, so I mean that could, that tide could turn over time, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
100% it could.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's awesome because yeah, my son is a bowler just a little bit. He's got other sports that he's involved in that kind of conflict, but maybe someday. But in the end, it's his decision. He's got to do what he's going to do, and I'm sure the same with Addy Jo.
Oh yeah.
So obviously, the point of this whole thing is to kind of go through your bowling story, and I want to start with your family. I mean, you've got a pile of family members who have worked in the bowling business, parents, grandparents. Why don't you start by kind of giving us the rundown?
Yeah. So my dad, he was a mechanic for Brunswick for 37 years, and actually started out as a janitor and then worked his way up to be head mechanic. And then so he's actually out of the bowling business now. And then my mom, she same thing, she worked her way up. Her mom, so my grandma, was her GM at one point. And it runs in the family. My mom was a league coordinator, so us being able to talk to league bowlers is super simple and it's super easy for us, and somehow league bowlers like us. And so my both of my grandmas, so my mom's mom and my dad's mom, both were GMs. And my dad's dad, he owned, it was called the Lion's Den, and I believe that it was a bowling center, but also a bar.
Okay.
And so it goes back. And then my uncle John, he was a GM for Brunswick. He started out just like my dad as a janitor, moved his way up, and then he got into management. So my dad stayed in the um, facility side. My uncle went to the management side, and now my uncle John's back in the facility side.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's still in the business, so that's nice. Um, but other than that, just a family affair.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sitting here reading this over and the information you gave me, thinking it would be impossible for you not to be involved in bowling somehow with all that around you.
Mhm.
And you said you started at age 2.
Yeah.
So, I mean, normally I ask people, about their, kind of how they began, but I'm guessing you've got to rely on parents and other family members to kind of tell you about how you started in it.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically I grew up in a bowling alley. During my childhood, I remember just going to the bowling alley with my dad and chilling in the bar on the couches with my older brother watching cartoons.
Okay.
So, every Saturday morning, my dad had to go in, oil the lanes. We would help oil. One memory that my brother and I have is someone would be at the front counter flipping on all the lanes, and then the other person will be running the lanes because there's a 48 lane center, all one shot. And so whoever was fastest would win. And so whoever was flipping, and then whoever's running, whoever could flip faster, whoever could run faster. I mean, just having those memories is what I love about my childhood.
Yeah. Now, are you a Minnesota native or did you kind of transplant there from somewhere else?
A transplant.
Okay.
So I'm actually from New Jersey,
Okay.
and so I grew up in South Jersey. We grew up at the Brunswick Zone in Turnersville, which now is Bolero. But I lived there until I was about 12 and then transplanted over here in Minnesota because my dad, he was offered a bigger facility.
Okay.
And so they're like, you can either have Minnesota or Arizona. And of course, me and my brother picked Arizona, but my parents were like, no, Minnesota.
It's a great spot though. I mean, the Twin Cities has such a great bowling scene and you are, kind of going there at an
Hmm.
age similar to when I went there because I'm originally from Milwaukee, but my parents moved us up there when I turned 10.
Hmm.
So, I mean, kind of, we'll kind of get there, but I want to start out with your junior program beginnings. I mean, when you started bowling in league, um, what was that like for you? Do you remember?
Yeah. So surprisingly, my age group, the parents didn't like me, so I had to go in the higher age group. Because
and they didn't like you because you were too good at that point?
yeah. And so, I basically I bowled over 20 games a day just because that's what we would do in the summertime is we couldn't stay home alone, so we were
Right.
at the bowling alley. And so bowling 20 games a day, um I was averaging, what, if you pull up my USBC number, I think back in 2005 I was at a like 176 average or something.
Wow.
And so that was 5th grade for me.
Holy cow.
Yeah, so when I was, 10, I was bowling against the 16-year-olds because my division didn't want me in it because I was winning all first place. And I just remember they're like, Megan, you had to go in this division. And so then I was bowling my brother because
Mhm.
he was in the age above me. And so, yeah, we used to have a lot of trophies in our house that we no longer have.
Okay. Which is a good problem to have, I'll tell you that.
Right.
Jay's chiming in, says, "Hi, Fef." Hi, Jay. Thanks again for watching live as a regular viewer and contributor. And he also checked out some of the coverage of the Peacock Classic, which I appreciate. And he says his wife is from Eagan, Minnesota, which is another suburb of the Twin Cities. So across town from Megan there.
Yes.
All right. So you're kind of building yourself up in Jersey. You
Mhm.
end up moving to the Twin Cities. I remember I have a vivid memory of being, taken to my first junior league at Spectrum Lanes in Maple Grove, which doesn't exist anymore.
Mhm.
But tell me about what you remember, kind of coming off of all that success and then all of a sudden going into a new place and a new bowling community.
Yeah, so we moved here in 2005. And so I believe that my brother and I took 2 years off because we didn't have a league to join, or we didn't try to seek out one.
Yeah.
It wasn't until 2007 when we joined the Junior All-Star League at Brunswick and Blaine.
Hmm.
And so that's where my mom started working because she was in Eden Prairie at the time, and then she got moved to Blaine, and then she had the junior league program there. And so then in 2007, I believe, me and my brother, we decided we wanted to bowl again.
Yeah.
And so coming back is so back in 2007, that's when I started kind of averaging about 190s to 200s.
Okay.
And so there's always a running joke, or not a joke, but a running inside joke between me and my brother of who's the better bowler.
Mhm.
And if you ask him today, he'll say him, but really it's me.
But that's cool. I mean, you guys probably had, enough competition to kind of keep the juices flowing, in
Hmm.
those formative years, right?
Yeah, yeah. It was a lot of fun, going against him and trying to outbeat him. Now
Yeah.
it's like he hasn't touched a bowling ball for years and I'm still bowling somehow.
There you go. Yeah. Jenny McCook says she loves you. Great to see you. I'm assuming that's maybe friend.
Yeah, so that's she's one of my coworkers,
Oh,
and
cool.
so yep, she's at my new job now. So she's awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you for tuning in live. I certainly appreciate that too. So you're kind of getting into the sport again, which is great that you were able to really pick up where you left off after 2 years off. Um, how about tournament competition? I mean, when did you start up with that in Minnesota?
So funny story. I had a full ride scholarship to Nebraska Lincoln.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I did not take it.
Oh,
Don't ask me why, because it was a big mistake. But then again, I
okay.
wouldn't have Addy.
Hmm.
So I started doing the women's state tournament here up in Minnesota when I was 18.
Okay. And you
So
didn't do junior tournaments before that?
no, I really didn't get into it.
Ah,
Just the normal Pepsi tournament, or now it's Storm.
yep.
But it was just a normal Pepsi tournament that I would get in from league bowling. That's
Sure.
the only tournaments. I didn't really know about the junior gold.
Okay.
Yep, I didn't really know about that until I started working in the bowling industry the second time.
Ah, okay.
Hmm.
All right. So you start off, with the adults.
Yep.
Did I mean, was it an easy transition? Did you,
Oh yeah,
did you do?
100%.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. It was, it's like my first when I was 18, when I first started, I had a pretty decent set that year. I remember being in like the top 20.
Okay.
Um don't ask me what my set was because I couldn't tell you. And so I was in the top 20 when I was 18, so I was like, "Oh heck yeah, I can do this."
Yeah.
And then so just moving forward, 10 years later, at my 10 year this year at the women's state, I had an awesome, awesome set.
Yeah.
And so having that 10 year, my mom was there too. We'll get into that whole story. But yeah, no, I enjoy it. I really do.
Yeah. And as Jenny would attest, rock star.
Right?
Right there. I
Yes.
say she's a rock star because she came in with headphones. Not all my guests do, and but you said you're a gamer, so I'd expect no less. Um, you kind of mentioned about working in the industry and having that family background. That doesn't surprise me that you would follow suit. But tell me about how you advanced through the ranks to get to become general manager of a center.
Yeah, for sure. So when I was 16, I had a job.
Okay.
So I had a job right then and there. So I started out as a party hero. So it's kind of like a server for birthday parties.
Okay.
And so I just dealt with the birthdays and I made sure the birthday kids were having fun and made sure the parents were happy, just getting it all going. And so I started out as a party hero when I was 16. 3 months later, I was promoted to party hero trainer.
Okay.
And so, people that I was training were, a couple years older than me and just little old 16-year-old Megan. It's like, hey guys. And so I went from party hero to party hero trainer. And then they needed a front counter, like a year later. Probably not a year later, but sometime. But then I started as the counter person. And then the one counter girl that was there, Mary, I think was her name. She was the Saturday, Sunday morning person.
Okay.
Well, then she quit. And then they're like, Megan, you're Saturday, Sunday. I'm like, okay, that's fine. And
Yeah.
so then gave me my hours, getting to know the bowlers. And then, a couple months later, next thing you know, they're like, Megan, we need you to train in the new counter person. So then I became the counter trainer. I was like, all right, why not? And then during that time, um, there's a gal, Gail, who was the league secretary or the league coordinator.
Mhm.
And then so she ended up quitting during my time. And then Jenny, her daughter, actually became the league coordinator. And then I was the junior league coordinator.
Okay.
And so running the counter and then junior league coordinator. And then I do remember Jenny um, ended up having her first kid. So then when she was out on leave, I was now the league coordinator, the junior league coordinator, and then the front counter.
Oh, that's all?
Just that,
Yeah.
And so then I started dealing with the leagues, and then I kind of just took my mom's roots, and next thing you know, all the league bowlers loved me. I'm like, oh hey guys, I knew everybody by name, I knew them by face, and it's like just having those connections with the bowlers, and then being able to help them, being able to be like, hey, I know what you're going through, like, tell me your thoughts, tell me the issues that are going on, because I'm not just this little 17, 18-year-old that doesn't know anything.
Mhm.
It's like I know how to read a lane. I've been reading a lane my entire life. Like I can tell you the different oil patterns. I can tell you where you need to stand. Like I can see the break point. And so then that's how they gained respect for me. And then um, in between there, I remember when I was like 18 or 19, they wanted me to do the event side, so birthday parties.
Okay.
And so they threw me on there for a couple months, and then I was like, I don't like this. I don't want to deal with this.
Sure.
Put me back in the leagues.
Yeah.
And then, so then I was the main counter person, and then leagues, and then I decided that I wanted a bigger old job. So
Mhm.
then I went to State Farm Insurance. So
Okay.
when I was 19, I started, going into insurance, and then I worked insurance for 4 years. And then after 4 years, I decided that I wanted to get back into bowling
Yeah.
because once you're in the industry, you can't get out of it.
It is, yeah, it is kinda like that.
Like, and so then when I got back into the industry, I went to Bolero, and so that was in 2018, August of 2018. So now I believe what I was 24 ish
Okay.
when I went back, 23, 24, maybe 25, I don't know. Um, and so then I knew the GM there, and I was
Mhm.
like, "Hey." are you guys looking for a manager? And she's like, not really, not right now. She's like, who do you got? I was like, myself. She goes, all right, the DM's gonna be calling you tomorrow.
Wow.
And so then I had the interview, and of course, somehow I got it.
Wow. Okay.
And so then that's how I got back into the bowling industry. So then I became an operations manager, and then I was with Bolero for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years.
Mhm.
And then in 2020, so February of 2020, I decided to quit Bolero and go to a triple shift.
Okay.
And so that's the Mermaid.
Okay.
And so I went to the Mermaid in 2020, so February 2020 when they
Which
had
is another center in, in
yep,
your area.
yep, another center. It's a different company. So we had probably I want to say like 800 bowlers at that point in time, maybe a little more
Okay.
of league bowlers. So there's a lot of leagues. There's a lot of league bowlers that I had to know. And then next thing you know, COVID.
Uh,
And so then we got shut down, of course.
yeah.
And so then um during COVID, we were shut down for probably I think it was like 4 months. And then we were called back. And I was one of the managers other than the GMs that were called back
Mhm.
because right now, we're just going to be open for set amount of hours, try to get this back. And then I was actually on track of becoming like a lead coordinator for the company.
Okay.
And then things churned. And
Yeah.
then GMs quit. And then next thing you know, I was being put around to all different centers. So I went to a couple different centers to help them out as GMs quit. And then
Mhm.
I kind of just ran with it. And then a couple months later, they're like, "Hey, Megan, how do you feel about becoming the GM of Super Bowl?" I
In
was like,
Anoka.
"Yes," or
Yeah.
Ramsey, Anoka
Or Ramsey.
Ramsey.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I was like, "All right, let's give it a shot."
Yeah.
And so then Super Bowl was actually closed during this entire time.
Okay.
So I built Super Bowl back up. And then I was just putting in way too many hours that I didn't need to.
Mhm.
And so the only reason why I got out of the business was to spend more time with Addie.
Yeah.
So I was kind of neglecting her in a sense with homework. And I was always crabby because I was never sleeping and getting up at 6 a.m. and then working until 11, 12 or midnight and then
Yeah.
waking up early. Like I'm not going to bed until almost 2, 3 o'clock, waking up at 6.
Right.
Yeah. So I was just kind of burning myself out. So, and then I started to not enjoy bowling.
Okay.
And that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because once you start not enjoying bowling, then you don't want to be in a bowling center. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do this. And
Yeah.
so I was like, nah, it's time.
Sure.
And so just it was back in October is when I quit the bowling industry, and then now I'm doing property management.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So Jay mentioned that he thinks that this is a wonderful interview. So thank you, Jay. He says you're very sweet and intelligent. Got to get back to work. Good luck to you. You've got a bright future.
Oh, thanks,
Not
Jay.
bad. Not bad. And Frida says, "Hey, Meggers, I made it, Grandma. You are a rock star." Is
That's my
that
grandma.
that is
Yeah.
Grandma? All right, cool. Well,
Yep.
thank you, Frida, for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Yeah, and as Jay said, she is doing a great job. Um, uh, Daron Hansen, our guest on episode 107, said that you also did a great job in the business. He talked about his experience working with you to put on the Minnesota Junior Bowlers Tour, which he runs. He said that you're great, always willing to help and accommodate their event. He says it helps when a GM is a bowler as well. Everything seems to flow better because, as a bowler, as you said, you know what you want when going into a center for a tournament. As a GM, you can make sure those experiences happen. And I'm assuming, when you have a big tournament like a Minnesota Junior Bowlers Tour or something else, you kind of put yourself in their shoes just
Mhm.
instinctively, right?
Yeah, for sure. There was a couple of tournaments that I had at Super Bowl and Mermaid, and there, there's always lane machines that break down.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that Darren gave me some credit because it was one of his lanes that broke down.
Oh no.
And so, and he kind of understood. I was like, hey, stuff happens. And we had to call the FM and we're like, you got to get in here because we had a B mechanic on.
Okay.
So, or a C mechanic. And we're like, the FM's coming, like, we'll get you on the lane and, just smooth talking them to make sure that they know, like, hey, I do understand, like, I'm just not pushing you away.
Right.
But yeah, that's funny. I love
Yeah.
Darren. He's awesome. He used
Yeah.
to work a lot with my mom too.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and he's certainly been around the bowling scene there enough years that that's not a surprise to me. But yeah, so tell me about the best parts of running a center because like you in my youth, I worked at a few of them, but I mean, I was just I worked the counter and I chased
Mhm.
pins and things like that. Um, running a center it takes some responsibility and it's you got to see the bigger picture. I would think there are different different memories that you have than someone like me who didn't reach those heights.
Oh yeah. Just being friends with bowlers, being friends with the people that come in, like, everyone always says that the league bowlers are the ones that bring your money in.
Mhm.
It's everybody.
Yeah.
You want to give everybody the experience of a lifetime when they come into a bowling alley. You don't want them to feel like they're unwanted or, um, making them feel that, oh, they're not important. They're
Mhm.
important. And so, just having those connections with bowlers, having those connections with open bowlers in the bar business. And so what really brought, business to Super Bowl was the bar.
Yep.
And so before they didn't have bingo or anything in there. And so I got a new pull tab company in there and got them to bring bingo. And so that was extra revenue that was being made on a Sunday that wasn't there. And so, there's so many responsibilities. You got to have the right servers, you got to have the right staff, you got to have the right personality to run a center because like if you get the grumpy old men that don't give two craps what they want to do and they don't give two craps about anyone, they're just like, "Oh, here's your lane. Bye."
That's a
You know?
problem.
It is a problem. So,
Yeah.
I had a very young staff, so I kind of built my staff up to what I liked
Mhm.
and to make sure that, people felt welcomed and so that they would come back.
Yeah.
Because there's times where, some people don't feel welcomed and I was called racist a few times.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, that's cool. I'm really not, but thank you.
Yeah.
And so it's like I don't know why people like to do that.
Mhm.
And then, then you're like, oh, now I got a sour taste in my mouth, you
Right.
know? And so there's just like those little overcomes that you have to overcome. So those little challenges that have to happen. And, it gets tough.
Mhm.
But, you survive and you move forward.
Yeah.
And so like league bowlers, um when I was helping out those other centers before I became the GM,
Mhm.
Super Bowl was one of them.
Okay.
And Super Bowl during COVID had, I believe, 3 leagues.
Oh,
So all their leagues disappeared. They dismantled. They went, nope, not bowling no more.
yeah.
And so then, um, at that point in time, my first year with Super Bowl, um, had very few bowlers. And then next thing you know, the next year, so this year, we had Wednesday night almost completely full. Thursday night was a little, it was we lost one league, but the women's league came back. And Saturday night, we lost the every other Saturday league, but the every other Saturday league stayed. And so, just trying to build, trying to get those relationships, that's what I cared about.
Yeah. Yeah. At the same time, as you're mentioning, you were competing and competing at a very high level. We'll get into the tournament wins in a second here. But one thing I wanted to mention was that I talked with episode 106 guest Jessica Boyer. She said that you're a fantastic bowler and competes hard. She's earned her first place titles after coming back from having surgery on your hand and wrist. Was that recently, or was that before all the success?
It was recently. So I've had surgery twice on my wrist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I had right here.
Okay.
And so now I'm actually battling a thumb injury.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's my next step is I'm gonna have to figure out my thumb issues.
Sure.
But yeah, I believe I had surgery 2 years ago,
Okay.
maybe year and a half. It was either 2 or a year and a half ago. And so that was my second surgery on my hand.
Wow.
And so my first surgery was back in, I believe, 2019. So yeah, it was all during this.
Yeah. So, I mean, so let's talk about the tournaments. I mean, you've won, titles in association events, in state events. I mean, kind of give me the rundown. Tell me about, some of the best experiences you've had during this string of success that I can't imagine a lot of women in Minnesota have achieved.
Yeah, it's actually pretty fun. And so it can be nerve-wracking for sure.
Yeah.
But so my first win was back in 2019, 2020,
Mhm.
and that was at the Minneapolis Women's Championship.
Mhm.
And so it was just our local USB-C, and I was bowling with Trista Kimmis, and we took handicap doubles and scratch doubles, and we had a scratch doubles of 1445.
Wow.
And then with handicap, that was me because at that time I did have some handicap. We had a 1502, so we killed it.
Yeah.
And so that was my first title win.
Okay.
And then in 2020, we took a scratch. Well, I took scratch doubles and a scratch team. And I believe I was bowling with Trista again on that one. I couldn't tell you. I can't remember. But the team was with Trista Kimmis, and then so her team. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then in 2021 is when I started doing my own thing.
Okay.
So then at Women's State, I took scratch singles with a 752. And I do remember this. I had a 285 game.
Okay.
And so my last ball, it should have been a 290 game. But late at the last minute, my ball just goes whoop straight through the head pin. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
And so I do remember that day. And then in 2022 for the Women's State Championship, so I took all event scratch with a 2111,
Mhm.
and that was huge. And I had a 300, and that was my first sanctioned 300.
Okay.
And so this is where the story comes out about with my mom being with me.
Yeah.
And so this is the first tournament that my mom came to,
Oh.
and it was my 10-year tournament with Women's State, and we were bowling team event, and I had a pretty decent first game, and then the second game I was just stringing those strikes along,
Mhm.
and then it gets to the 10th frame. I'm like, oh my god, am I really gonna do this? And so then I'm like, okay, I'm really gonna do this. I'm gonna get my 300 today.
Mhm.
And so then, the first strike of the 10th frame, it was solid. I was like, yes. And then frame 11, it was a pretty decent solid strike. And then frame 12, I kind of pulled it a little bit,
Okay.
but it was still a solid strike.
Okay.
And so it was awesome because, again, it was my first 300 sanctioned. And then my mom, all you hear is my mom is screaming, crying. She's like, oh my God, my baby girl. And then she's just screaming and she's like, oh my God. And so it's like, it's like that 10-year. I'm always going to have that memory is my 10-year for Women's State. I have that 300.
Yeah.
And so now my mom is like, I'm coming to all your tournaments.
And you're probably like, thank you, because
Yeah, I had
It
my
worked
little
out
chair
pretty well for
spot.
me. Yeah.
But yeah, and so that women's state, I had that 300, the only 300 for that year. And so this year, my goal is to be the only 300 again and to take all the titles.
Sure. Yeah. Where,
But
which house were you at last during when you had the 300?
oh geez, it's up in Alexandria.
Oh, Garden Center?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And so this year is actually surprisingly at Super Bowl in Andover Lanes.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
And so that brings us to the 2022 Twin Cities Women's Championship.
mhm.
And so this was at Andover Lanes. And I took scratch team, and we had a 2589.
Wow.
I took handicap singles with a 794. I took scratch singles with a 794. And then I took scratch all events with a 2121.
That is a great tournament. I mean, 794 and 2100.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
I mean, I was kind of a little upset that I didn't get my 800,
Mhm.
but I can't be too greedy.
Right. Yeah. When I mean, you're going through these tournaments and winning titles each time. Tell me about, kind of the mindset as you go to each one, knowing that you've had the success in the past. Obviously, you want to continue it, but do you, I mean, what kind of mindset do you have going into an event like that?
You know, um, you don't want to think about it. It's a new day, it's a new bowling alley, it's a new lane.
Yeah.
So I don't like to get into my head, because once I get into my head is when I start doing crap. And I'm like, I don't like that. And so just having the mindset of it's a new lane, it's a new day, and just throw your ball. That's like the best advice that I can give somebody is just throw your ball. Don't think about it. Because, at women's state, um, I wanted the singles. I had the scratch singles title. I was like, I'm gonna get the scratch singles title. Well, I didn't get it, but then again, I got the scratch all events.
Yeah.
So, as long as you get one title, why not? Just go with it.
Yeah. This must be mom here.
It is.
I'm her good luck charm.
She sure is.
Yeah, yeah, you proved that, right out of the
Hmm.
gate. Um, so in the team environment, I asked Josh Kennedy, who said he subs on your Monday team, about you being a teammate and what you're like in that atmosphere. He said that you're a great teammate. Says he only subs on that team for the most part, but it's always fun to bowl with her. Her personality is amazing, both on and off the lanes. He says that you're one that can make someone laugh even when somebody's having a bad day. Tell me about that. I mean, that's kind of important to keep it light, in competition, isn't it?
It really is. Like I said, it's like if you get into your head too much, then you're really overthinking. Like I do have bad days. I can
Sure.
tell you I have bad days. And so Josh, that's really nice of him to say. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I always try to make light of the conversation or light of the day. Just because like if you get into a crappy mood, that's how you're gonna bowl. So if you're bowling crappy, it's your mood.
Yeah.
So, you always just want to try to keep it light. Like when I'm bowling with my tournament team, the girls like they'll be throwing really good balls, but that pesky 10 pin.
Oh, sure.
And so like they leave the 10 pin. I'm like, "Hey, it's a new ball. Just throw a new ball." And so they're like, "Okay." And then they're all down in the dumps. I'm like, "Guys, come on. Like let's just get happy." And like I'm over here, shooting 794s. Um and they're like, "Megan, you can't say anything." I'm like, "No, it doesn't mean about the scores.
Yeah.
Just go out there and have fun." And
Yeah.
so um I was the youngest on the tournament team, and then we just got a new girl, Kayla. She's in college now.
Okay.
And um so having another young person like myself, it's awesome.
Yeah.
So this past tournament that we had, the Twin Cities Women's Championship,
Mhm.
there's a funny story. I had COVID when we were supposed to bowl.
No. Oh.
I was
Jeez.
like, I was like, guys, can we please like move some things around so I can at least bowl?
Yeah.
And so my team was able to do that,
Oh,
and
good.
so um, we didn't bowl, or when I bowled, I didn't bowl with my other four teammates.
Okay.
So when it comes to this women's state championship that is up in May, it's going to be a lot of fun to actually be with the team.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me about the team. I mean, you mentioned Kayla. Who else is on your team?
Yep, so I got Kayla Devine, Michelle Lapuse, Gloria Gates, Michelle Taylor, Mariana Russell, and then Kayla, me, and then Shannon. I can't think of her last name, but I believe that was 8. Yeah, they're a great group. I love them. They're a lot of fun to bowl with.
Sure.
And
I know I've seen Michelle Bowl in some events around town, but the name that sticks out to me is Gloria Gates because she's had so much success
oh
in
yeah.
her career.
Yes. Yeah, she surprisingly, when I was bowling juniors at Bolero in Blaine, which was Brunswick Zone XL in Blaine,
Yeah.
she tried to recruit me when I was that age. She's like, "You're gonna be on my tournament team." Next thing you know, I'm on the tournament team.
Yeah. What I guess if you could point to maybe something that you've learned from her, bowling with her, bowling in that team environment, what would it be?
Just stay calm. Keeping calm and staying calm is one of your best friends that you can do. So, um, she would say that I teach her more things,
Mhm.
but she really teaches me a lot. Um, she's a great woman to bowl with, and I think getting onto her team has really changed my mindset because before it was we're just bowling, and then now actually being on Gloria's team, we work together as a team. And so like the scratch team event that we had 2589, we're like, all right, some people did bad one game and the next game we did good.
Yep.
But somebody always carried somebody else, and that's the greatest thing is just because you had one bad game doesn't mean we're not going to have a bad game.
Right.
And so on that day they actually carried me somehow.
There you go.
Like before, it's like the previous day I had a 794. I mean, I still bowled a 678, but it's like they still carried me on when I had a bad game.
Yeah.
We all do.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. So tell me about, kind of going forward here. You mentioned the tournament that you have coming up. Um, how often are you bowling these days?
I only bowl on Mondays right now,
Okay.
but if I can, I will bowl tournaments on the weekends.
All right.
Um, it just hasn't been too much lately because I want to save my thumb.
Sure.
Because if I start bowling more than 6 games in a day, I will be out for about a week.
Okay.
And so I have they think it's tendonitis in my thumb, but I had to go get it checked out again
Mhm.
because I think there's more issues. And so my pro shop guy Greg Reiners, he's out of the Mermaid. He has been working with me, just making sure, changing the pitch in my thumb, changing everything that you could name. And we're like, what is going on with my thumb? We even changed my span.
Yeah.
That was a weird adjustment.
I bet.
And it was just a little bit. It wasn't
Yeah.
even that much. It was like an eighth. But there was a lot of pressure that was, relieved.
Hmm.
And so working with Greg, he was actually the one who got me to switch over to Storm because I was a big Brunswick girl.
Hmm.
And he's like, Megan, try out Storm. And then once I switched to Storm is when I started putting up numbers.
Okay.
I mean, before, I'd put up some numbers, but just being able to work with Greg and being able to put up those numbers, it's awesome.
Yeah.
But yes, I do have Women's State coming up in May. And then I have the Women's Nationals in June.
Okay.
And then I don't have anything else yet. But, just random tournaments here and there. Like if it's a 3-gamer, I'll go bowl it.
Sure. But you mentioned long format, not really something you're doing now. Is that something you're hoping to get back into?
Oh yeah, 100%. I want to be able to bowl, tournaments probably every other weekend.
Okay.
Um, with having weekends off now, it's actually it's beneficial.
Yeah.
And to be able to bowl those weekend tournaments, I mean, it just gets my name out there. One day I do want to be sponsored. I do
Mhm.
want to be on staff with Storm. Hopefully one day. We're working on it.
Yeah.
And then Coolwick, I'm trying to work with them to get sponsored with Coolwick. So hopefully one day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I bring that up because I know later on in the year there's a PWBA regional at Cedarvale and Egan, and I was going to ask you, is that something that you have your sights on?
Yeah, actually. I do want to bowl it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there's actually the Queens here on February 5th.
Mhm.
I don't think I'll be able to bowl it this year,
Okay.
just because with an 8-game qualifier and then the step ladder,
Yeah.
I don't think my thumb can handle it. I mean, I may try. I'm
Sure.
still debating on it. Um, but yes, I do want to bowl the PWBA as an amateur, so that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And if I put some numbers up and get up there, that yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Um, well, we're getting close to an hour. Not, we're I've been watching the time because I know Addy Joe's got to go to bed, but I can't finish up without going off the sheet with you, and that's asking you to challenge somebody else. Doesn't have to be the greatest bowler in the world, but somebody who's got passion for the sport and a unique story to tell to be on a future episode. So, Megan Antonelli, who would you like to challenge to be on a future episode of Bowling with the Fat?
Oh, he's gonna shoot me. Um, it's gonna be Nick Hogan.
Okay.
So he's kind of like me. He grew up in a bowling alley. I believe his grandparents owned White Bear Lake or White Bear Bowl,
Oh yeah.
and so he grew up in bowling just like me. But he has way more titles. But yeah, Nick Hogan.
Okay. Well, that's great. I know White Bear Bowl pretty well. I bowled my first MJBT there, missed the cut by flagging a 9-pin. I'll never forget that. But memories all the same. Nick, don't shoot Megan. That would not be nice. But if you do want to take her up on her challenge, you can find me on Facebook or email me bowlingwiththefef@yahoo.com, and we will make that happen. Megan, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show
Of
and
course.
sharing your story with us.
Of course. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. And thank you, everyone, for watching. Have a great week. We will come at you with a new show coming up next week. Don't really have a time or date just yet, but I'm working on that. So until then, be just and fear not. And we will see you then.